Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Dead Malls, your one home for the grooviest mall explorations and everything history related. In today's episode, my friends and I, still reveling in our early morning urbex to C3, traveled an hour south along Highway 43, all the way down to southwest Pennsylvania's a little hidden gem of a small city, Uniontown, and to the iconic mall of the same name. Uniontown Mall, the 90s turquoise fever dream sitting atop its hill overlooking town, has as of recent been turned into a ghost town once more. When this video was filmed last summer in 2023, the mall still had a decent amount of life to it, and some stores. But as of seeing a recent video walkthrough taken just a few weeks ago, there's quite a bit missing, and the mall has only gotten a lot quieter since this video was filmed. But before we dive into this iconic pastel landmark, I want to take a moment and shout out our winner who was able to successfully guess the next mall. Very nice job at 121 HSIL. If you would like to have your chance of being shouted out in the next episode, be sure to stick around for the next challenge. Anyways, let's enjoy the mountain scenery for just a bit longer, then dive in here, explore, and tell the full story of the aesthetic paradise known as Uniontown Mall, and see how it was doing in summer of 2023. Oh yes, this is Pastel Paradise. If you're a fan of the colors blue and pink, you're really going to enjoy this mall. Wherever you go, the color is there, in the amazing retro 90s ceilings, and even in these empty storefronts, like this old... what was this, an old Sbarro? As we get in here, you'll see the mall in this sort of limbo state, where Uniontown has been dying for a long time, and it's not really dead yet, but it hasn't been alive either. Actually, since filming this video, a lot of brands that you'll see have sadly closed. A really cool thrift store, Rue 21, an old candy store called Jean and Boots, and even this Annie Ann's coming up. But hey, at least we still have this beautiful JCPenney, still open with its entrance straight out of the 90s. So rad. Uniontown Mall's story begins in the late 1960s in the small Pennsylvanian city of the same name, where city leaders were pushing to get a new shopping center built right along a stretch of the brand new Uniontown bypass, a giant freeway which dawdled around the western side of town. By 1969, construction work had begun, clearing out the land for the giant semicircle of road that was to entrap the town. In September of 1970, concrete began pouring for the new bypass, and just a year later in 1971, the city had finally found its retail golden egg. But first, here's Uniontown's amazing neon-filled arcade, which I just adored, and right across the way, the old Annie Ann's, which is no longer existent, sadly. Crown American, at this point a well-revered mall development company in Pennsylvania, would officially begin work on their 10th major shopping center in 1971. Uniontown Mall, at a cost of $10 million, would feature just about 500,000 square feet of leasable retail space, and was planned to be the town's new go-to destination. And in tandem with the new freeway, city officials were hopeful that all of this new infrastructure would make the area a tourist magnet, hoping to pull in travelers from all over the mountains and even as far as Pittsburgh. Work progressed into 1972, and soon enough within the summer months, the very first brands, and even a small portion of the new mall itself, would prepare for opening. As you can tell, my friends and I were completely captivated by all of the teal wonders which followed us through this mall. From the dripping skylights and crossbeams to these giant bushy trees and planters which dotted the empty corridors. Occasionally you'll see a mall walker or shopper break the silence, but as we venture further into the mall and towards its especially vacant and empty wings, the foot traffic becomes almost non-existent, and a haunting blue aura almost becomes suffocating, like there's no other light to break the hue. On July 31st, 1972, the first of Uniontown's anchor stores would come to life, as a brand new local-based GB department store would open its doors, split up between a traditional department store, food market, and even a furniture store. But this wasn't all, as that same day, a small portion of Uniontown Mall opened as Phase 1, and a taste of what was to come. What residents and tourists coming off the new freeway found was, in all honesty, not the most fantastic mall in the state, but a brand new and half-filled up mall nonetheless. Some brands to open with GB in Phase 1 included Orange Julius, Kinney Shoes, Record Mart, Fashion Bug, The Pretzel Oven, Hanover Shoes, The Tie Shop, and House of Cards. Within its mallway, Uniontown's aesthetics were originally a lot blander, with terrazzo floors, drop ceilings, and no skylights at all within its hallways. The mall was much darker and more lit up by its storefronts. However, there were 3 fountains dotted between the courts of GB, the center of the mall, and the new second anchor, Sears, which would open in February of 1973. Shortly after, in May, a new twin-screen theater called Twin 40 would also open, operated by Manos Theaters. Brands to continue filling the spaces in the now jumping and booming Uniontown Mall, which had quickly caught the city's retail niche, included a men's jewelry, Tom McCann, General Nutrition Center, Hickory Farms, and Walden Books. These, along with several other brands, would round out the mall in its $5 million Phase 2 opening on October 13, 1973, where the entirety of the structure would be open to the public. Coming up here, we're going to see what would have been the old Hess's Wing, which, out of all of them in this mall, has been vacant the longest, and still features some really interesting 80s and 90s style storefronts. Super retro and so cool. But to anyone who's native of the area, or frequented Uniontown in its glory years, what all was down on this side of the mall? Let me know down below. Uniontown Mall, after fully opening, quickly became the happening place in town, and its success would warrant the construction of the mall's third anchor, the Bonton, which would open on July 28, 1976, as the mall's central anchor. By the early 80s, Crown American was once again planning to expand the mall, this time looking to bring in their very own name brand. And in July of 1983, construction began in the Sears Court to add an entirely new wing of stores to the structure. In March of 1984, this new wing of shops would be dedicated, along with the mall's fourth official anchor store, Hess's, who had just been bought out by Crown American a few years prior in 1979, the exact wing we're walking through right now. The original Twin 40 theaters would also be expanded to 4 screens in December of 1983, becoming the Quad 40. Now at 625,000 square feet of leasable retail space, Uniontown begins to take the layout we see today. However, there was one more renovation in the books. During the late 80s, the mall's outdated aesthetics of old just weren't cutting it in a newer age of malls. But Crown had one last renovation and expansion planned, before they would ultimately meet their end. One to bring Uniontown into a permanent age of vaporwave. Also, take a look at that old mall space back there. That all used to be the Hess's wing, with a giant skylight and even its own anchor court. But unfortunately, it was all walled off, or I guess windowed off, long ago for a furniture store, which itself isn't even open anymore. Out of all of the shops, this ocean blue one with the mirrored tiles easily takes the cake for my favorite. So retro. I don't know if it's 80s or 90s, but I'd love to know what it was. Originally, I was thinking maybe a jewelry shop, but upon looking inside, I'm not so sure. Crown, wanting to keep the mall a relevant and thriving shopping hub, would commence a massive overhaul renovation in 1989. Through this renovation, the old GB space would be gutted and turned into more mall shops. On December 16, 1990, Uniontown Mall would hold its official grand reopening, debuting its new looks, a new GB store, only accessible through the mall, and the mall's 5th official anchor, JCPenney. But of course, the star attraction was its new pastel colors, a look which even today holds up as snazzy, classy, and just the right amount of old-school architecture. Dozens of new skylights would finally light up the halls, along with the new tropical plants and pastel tile. The fountains would unfortunately be removed, and dozens of newer age stores would come to fill the gaps. But Uniontown Mall would finally find its identity, one that has thankfully stuck around with it ever since. In 1992, GB, who had just escaped bankruptcy and had only been operating in their new store for a few years, would be bought out by the Value City chain, with the store being converted in 1993. Also in 1993, Carmike Cinemas would take over the Quad 40, adding 2 new screens in May of 1995 for a total of 6. The theater would simply be renamed Cinema 6. The 90s weren't all peachy though. While several new stores were added or converted to other chains, Crown American owned Hess's operating its large store at the very back of the mall wasn't hot water, as the company was on shaky ground, and Crown American was in the process of liquidating its assets, including the dying department store brand. The store would close in 1994 as Uniontown's first major anchor closure. The space would be converted into a freight liquidator discount store for a short time before being taken over by Teletech in 1997. It would convert the old Hess's space into a call center in 1998. Teletech would spend $5 million to convert the space, walling off the original Hess's anchor court and skylight and turning that space into a Timeless Traditions furniture store. Uniontown Mall, through Crown American's shaky downfall in the late 90s and early 2000s, would, for the most part, hold out as the town's strong retail anchor. However, a shifting trend of retail towards newer big box stores and away from the old mall shops began to make itself known, as less would shop in Uniontown and newer stores like Super Kmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, and Target began to sprout up all around the mall. The Pennsylvania Real Estate and Acquisition Trust, or PREIT, would officially acquire Crown American in 2003, ending their 31 years of ownership and ending Crown American's long-lived rule. In 2007, Value City, on their own shaky ground, would close their doors and become Burlington Coat Factory. Uniontown was doing fairly well in the early 2010s, however, sales expectations didn't meet PREIT's high standards, and they would sell them all off to Namdar in August of 2015, beginning its rapid downfall. Sears would be the next to go in March of 2017, after years of falling sales, closing their doors as the mall's last OG anchor to go. The Bon-Ton, of course an empty shell at this point, their brand gutted by horrible corporate greed and terrible decision-making, would shutter their gates in August of 2018. To pile onto the chaos of the retail apocalypse, which was hitting malls all across Pennsylvania, Timeless Traditions, Burlington, and Dunham Sports would all close in 2019, leaving the mall as you see it today. A ghostly shell of empty shops with JCPenney as the only thing keeping it alive. Through the pandemic, so many name brands would close their doors, and have continued to do so into the terrible 20s. So much so to the point where even the little mom and pop-up shops that are alongside them can't stay open any longer. The theater, bought out by AMC, would close on July 18, 2021. And that brings us to where we are today, where the future is uncertain. Will JCPenney stick around, or is that the next piece to break away? I'd love to know your thoughts, so let me know in the comments. What do you think the future holds for Uniontown Mall? Folks, I want to thank you all so much for joining me on tonight's adventure. Uniontown was an absolute blast. The color and the pastel vibes of the 90s were unforgettable. And if any of you are ever in the southwestern Pennsylvania area and you have time to kill, I highly suggest checking this place out. Take a lap and maybe even find yourself at the arcade. If you guys enjoy my Dead Mall episodes, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on future videos. And if you'd like to support me further, consider checking out the Patreon for sneak peeks at future vids and loads of bonus content. Next week we'll be live at a mall of your choosing, but 2 weeks from now we'll be back once again, this time exploring a superliminal 70s mall, which is tucked away in the mountains. Guess which mall we'll be at, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. But until then, have yourselves a lovely evening, and peace out, guys. See you later. This is the Appalachian Mountains. This is Uniontown. We're right next to it. It's so crazy.